All right, so welcome everybody to our CCNP class. Like I said, we got some really cool stuff going on today. I want to talk about, first off, don't forget this class uses more of Canvas than any other class because our Canvas class is where you're going to be uploading stuff. So you've got your Canvas here. We're uploading, accessing all this stuff. I added a bunch of stuff today, you'll notice. There's a bunch of junk that I put in here today. A lot of YAML files that we're going to be talking about, and a lot of revised items that you can open up and take a peek at. And these are, I've revised the documents for the labs to match CML or Cisco Modeling Labs. So I want to show you what we've got, and I want to talk to you about Cisco Modeling Labs. First off, let me go ahead and tell you, Cisco Modeling Labs is optional. You do not have to use it if you do not want to. Feel free to go to netlabs.stanley.edu, log in just like normal. You've got a class there called KFC CCNP. Feel free, KFC CCNP right here. ENCORE, you've got all your labs. They're all here. So feel free. In fact, some of these labs you have to do here, like 28, these right here. We have to do these inside of NetLabs because we can't do them in CML. But if you want to play with something new and kind of cool, I have over on competitions.stanley.edu, I have given you access to CML. Now, what is CML? Cisco Modeling Labs is the old viral. Now, viral because of, well, there's a little thing called a pandemic, all right? And so Cisco said, you know, it's not really a good idea to name our product after something that killed a bunch of people. So we're going to change it to Cisco Modeling Labs instead of viral. It used to be viral. So if you've heard of viral, CML is just a renamed version of it. But they also did something really cool in that they created what's called CML for Education or CML Education. We bought a license, a 10-user license of CML. So we load this CML on a big honking server. I mean, a big honking server. We have given CML server 600 gigs of RAM and 76 processors. That's the kind of server it's on. And then we've got our clients. Now, the neat thing is this. The clients don't take hardly anything. But I'm going to go ahead and log in. So I'm on competitions.stanley.edu. I've created a class here, and you're in the class. Well, if your login doesn't expire. By the way, if you see VE competitions and VE competitions.stanley.edu are the same servers. It's just the same name, but or same IP address. So I put everybody in a class called CML_2023. There are 10 pods in this particular class. So your username is your initial or your same username as NetLabs. I sent that out the other day in an email. Your initial password is Cisco123. You're going to go in and do a lab reservation. And when you do, you'll pick CML23. You'll find there's only one possible lab that you can do. So you click that lab, and you'll find 10 different pods out here available. All right. So be aware there's 10 pods out here. So you can go click on the red line just like normal, pick however much time you want, and boom, it's going to start booting up. Now, the neat thing is all this is booting up is a single little VM, a virtual machine that is, it's actually a Linux box, but it looks just like a Windows box. Okay, because there's an interface on it, it makes it look like Windows. So you'll see this thing's going to boot up here, and it is definitely a Linux box booting. But when it gets loaded, you'll see it's even got like a little window. It looks kind of like a window. It looks exactly like Windows box. All right. To get to CML, you double click Firefox. And then I have created all of you a username that is the same as your Cisco, same as your login for competitions. Same name. And your password is just Cisco123. So some of you have already been in here, so those names are being saved. I'm going to use the main. I'm going to use the admin. But I want to show you something that's important to note. Some of you have been in here creating pods. some of you had been in here creating pods and playing around, and you left those pods running. And you thought when you ended your reservation on, let's see, like GNS3, yeah, it's very similar to GNS3, but it's legal. That's the big difference there, Robert. It's actually legal GNS3. But if you left this pod running, you were playing with it and you created your own little design and you left it running, this was actually running when I came in a while ago. Like right now, this is Sohail. I think he's playing in some labs right now. He's got these NX OSs. So I can actually go in here and open a console and I can see an NX OS that's running down here. So we've got a running device. This is Sohail's lab. Now I can see his because I'm the admin. It's good to be the king. All right. But one of the things you want to do when you get done with a lab is you want to turn it off, because if you don't, it will sit there and use resources on the server. So if you're using a lab, turn it off, stop it. You can even, if you delete it, you'll notice it won't let you delete a lab you've created unless you wipe it first. So if you wipe it, you can delete it, but until you wipe it, you can't delete it. All right, so I'm actually going to delete that lab because somebody was playing with it, but it's, it's not really a useful lab. Check this lab out. This is one of the built-in labs that they put in here. Look at all the different devices. This is a model of a research lab in Australia. There's Perth, there's Sydney, there's Melbourne. And so all of these devices are here. This will boot up no problem and will run. I've actually been able on CML to run about 250 routers simultaneously. Okay, which is kind of nuts. But here's what's even better. I have created what are called YAML files that will let you be able to load the configurations for the lab. So let's say you wanted to do lab 514 on, I got that out of place there, 514 on the CML instead on NetLabs. You would log into CML, get inside of here. You're going to open this up. You can get to Canvas. So you can go to canvas.stanley.edu. You can put in your username. And put in your password. You got multi-factor authentication. It's going to text you. And let's see, I got to put in my code 458. I wouldn't put don't ask again for 14 days because obviously this is not a. Hold on one second. All right. So now once I'm in here, I can go to my CCNP class. Says it doesn't meet the minimum requirements, but it's all right. It'll still work. Go to CCNP and go down here and you find this YAML file. So let's go on down here. So I was wanting to do 514. So see this YAML file, we click on it and we just download it. We download it locally. And save it locally. Okay. Once we've done that, now what we can do is we can import this file. Supposed to import the file. Let's do it. There it goes. Import the file. Go to downloads and you will see lab 514. There's the YAML. Double click, import. Now you'll notice here's the lab that's built for lab 514. The document is right here. You'll see that this was tuning ether channel. And this is a document that I've created that shows you the actual connections, gig 01, 01, 0101, 0203 connected there, which is exactly what's mapped here inside. You literally just go and start. So you're going to go back out to the dashboard, find that lab and start it. And now these two devices are booting up. You'll see the little item booting up, and then I can actually go in here and I can watch these booting. And it's booting IOSB. Now, what I really like about this is, unlike a simulation, this is the real iOS. This is the real deal. It is not a simulation. It is the iOS running in a virtualized environment. And so once this gets done, now, will it do everything? No, it does not support IPv6. That's one of the things we've noticed. It doesn't support IPv6 on the devices right now. So some of the times we get into trouble and can't do IPv6. But for the most part, it supports most of the things in the labs. Here's something else that I want to throw out at you. To me, this is the future of the academy, and here's why. You buy one $10,000 server, a $20,000 license, and your students, up to 10 students, can access as many labs as they want to do for as long as they want to do. And you'll notice here it is. I mean, this is literally, so I want to do host D1. Well, if I could type worth of poop. All right. I can do that, show ver, I can do show IP brief. You'll see my interfaces there. I can do all these things. So I got all kind of options here. Now the other router is still booting. Sorry, y'all. I was trying. This other router is still booting, but you'll notice I can go in here and actually it's booted. It's actually fully booted now. And so I've got these two switches that are set up. And I'm, like I said, I've got all these options. I've also got some crazy things I can do. I actually go in here and I can mess with the connectivity. I can actually change the links. I can actually simulate a link condition. When we get down the road, you can actually simulate loss. So you could go in and say, I want 15% loss on this link and apply it. I want a jitter of 200 milliseconds. I want, so down the road, a latency of 500. Down the road, as we work more and more with this, you can actually mess with the bandwidth on these links, and you can do some really interesting things with our devices. But we can also just do the lab. So here's the document. We go through, it tells us we want to put this information in. You'll notice I went in and changed the interfaces. Okay. I've got the YAML file in it. So you want to do this, show LACP system ID. So let's see, you got to do all these things here. So range gig 0104. We got to change all these to actually match. And I think I've got those in here somewhere. Let me find my, I think I put that in here. I didn't know how to get the other config files. But like I said, you've got to play with it a little bit. It is not super simple, but you can take the lab and you can modify it to work inside of here. To me, it's an amazing tool because where else have you ever been able to see this many routers booted at one time? And even so, I can have 10 of you in here working on this, and it's the cost of over 2 years, the cost of much less than the physical equipment. So it's kind of crazy what's available. You will notice on some of them, if you have to have a PC, we do have a little thing called an Alpine box. There's a little, I usually use this little desktop for that. And so if you know Linux, it's literally just a little Linux box. So we don't even use the full interface. We just open a console and go in and use the Linux box there. Now you can go into VNC and actually open that VNC connection if you want to it, but it's just easy just to do a basic SSH config to it, or not SSH, but just a console connection to it. So you got a Linux user. If you want to do that, you can use it. So, but it's also easy.
Hey, Kelly, I got a quick question if you don't mind.
Shoot.
CML, that instance, like let's say like a few of us connected to that, could
Yep.
we communicate with each other's routers inside of that? Because I'm thinking like doing team labs with my students. One person sets up one instance of OSPF and the other does. Could they be on the same CML instance and interact with each other's virtual routers?
There is a way to do that. I am not familiar with it, but there is a way to do that. Yes, there's a way. There's even here's the crazy thing. There's even external connectors to allow your CML instance to connect to real gear. Now,
That's amazing.
I don't do that. So Phillips, how easy is this? Could this replace NetLabs? I don't think it replaces NetLabs because you need the schedule and the interface to make this work. But yeah, Phil, it's not that new. CML's been around a good while. The problem has always been is for some crazy reason, the Academy doesn't want to go into this, and I don't know why. Because just think about it here. The first lab, let's say one of our very first labs, is literally a PC and a switch, right? So here's an iOS switch, all right? And if you want to connect them together, you just do this. You literally just drag a cable over, and you say ETH0 to gig00 create link. Now this is basically the first lab inside of our CCNA1, right? Boot it up, and there's no reason. And guess what? I can do 10 of these on this, and there's the physical gear. It's not there. I don't have to worry about physical gear. I don't have to worry about, but the beauty is I have the fidelity of a real iOS image because it's not a simulation. It's the real gear. So to me, it's the future. I really think it is. I've been trying to get Cisco to see that more and more. We ran a couple years ago, we actually ran a pilot, and we taught CCNP ENCORE with it before I had my physical gear up and going. But, you know, for whatever reason, it didn't work out. So I just went and bought my own CML instance. I bought my own license. And, you know, I just had to go buy it and set it up, and here it is. So it's one of those things where we got out on the bleeding edge. You know, it wasn't cheap, but it's something we played with, and you could do it without NetLabs. You could definitely set this up and just have a server running in your environment. A lot of schools do that, but there's just so many tools you can do. There's sample labs. I mean, look at this. Here's a great example. How many of you have ASAs in your labs now? Well, guess what? We can pull an ASA out here now, and we can put an ASA into our environment, and we didn't have that before. We don't, there's an ASA, we can boot it, and we got a virtualized ASA. You'll notice we've got external connect. There's your external connector, Bob. Now that may allow you easily to get between different pods. I haven't played with it much, but you can even bring in your own things. There's a WAN emulator in here. There's an Ubuntu box. There's this is a traffic generator, T-Rex. There's just a bunch of different things. You can even add your own nodes in, which is kind of cool. But here is the ASA, which very few of us have those inside of our environment anymore. So we're working on, I may actually be using this for teaching network security. So easier than NetLabs, I don't know about that. Like I said, without the interface, without this ability to have the scheduler, there is no scheduler inside of CML. There is no easy way to do classroom management. There's no easy way to put in users, and there's no easy way to control users. So honestly, I would say that having the NetLabs in front of this makes your life much easier, especially from a security standpoint too, because you're able to control access to it. Think about this. If you didn't have this NetLabs, what you're doing is you're using this client box as a jump box to get into the network that has CML. Without NetLabs, you would have to set up a VPN. You would have to set up the ability to get into your campus network. You'd have to somehow secure that. So while, yes, it is feasible without NetLabs, it's much easier that you do it like this. Okay. And then here we have again our different interfaces on the ASA. So gig 00 is administratively down, so it's connected there. But it's just, we've got all kind of options. So this to me is is an amazing tool. The only negative is this. Now, once you get done, for instance, the lab doesn't shut itself off, so you need to turn it off. So these 2 labs I've been doing, I turn them off. And I had to delete them if I want to get rid of them, but I had to wipe them first. I had to wipe them and then delete it. Now, if you do a lab inside of here and you want to show the configs from it, well, just do a screenshot and upload the screenshot into my CCNP in here. So again, I put YAML files for all the different items, but you will need to go in when you do these. And when you look at the document itself, you'll need to change that default configuration, that first configuration that goes in, to match whatever interfaces have changed in this. So you'll notice here, for instance, this is gig 00, gig 00, gig 01, gig 01. So if you do this lab, you have to change this setup that I gave you. Those files I gave you, you have to manually change them yourself before you paste them in, or you just had to type in the configuration to begin with. So it's not super easy, but you could use, well, it is hosted on VMware. It's hosted on the back end on VMware. But again, you don't have the ability to get into the campus network and have that secure connection. Let me show you this one. I do want to show you this because this is pretty amazing. Let's boot this lab up. So right now we're booting up this lab, and you'll notice, okay, so see all these routers in here? All of them are starting up. Look at the resource usage down here. I'm only using 3% of the CPU, 3% of the memory. And so we're barely using any of the resources on this server. Now, when these get up and going, yeah, obviously it'll get a little bit tighter, but it still does not. And this is simulating a pretty large research network. Move this over here just a second. And then here's these other sample labs. There's a European, here's one that's got 48 nodes. Now, please don't open these up and leave them running because, like I said, it will use up my resources. But it's really cool to be able to set up a lab with 8, 10 OSPF routers in it, play with it, and you can do that in here. So if you just want to play around and pull out 10 routers, put them in OSPF area 0, put them in, make multi-area networks, you can do that in here. But you've got to, this is a CCNP class. That's why it's not, this type of tool is used in these more advanced classes because you're expected to be able to make your way around interfaces not being exactly what's in the lab and those things. See all these notifications telling you interfaces are starting on site inside of those. So, but as these get up and running, we'll eventually open this console and see this router get started here. Let's let it get started. We'll take a peek at it. Any questions about how to get into CML? Remember, it's on a different server. It's on competitions.stanley.edu. I sent out the login information, and your original password or the initial password is Cisco123. Then once you actually make a reservation and get into CML, so into this, you open up Firefox, you'll be given the login right here. The username is the same as your Cisco or not Cisco, your competitions login, and your password is Cisco123. So once you get to this, to get into modeling labs, use your username for competitions and the password is Cisco123. Okay. Let me pull this one back up while this one's still booting. I knocked myself out like a doofus. So this one's booting here. Try to get back in Brisbane. So there it is. It's got any configuration? I don't think it's got any configuration on it. No, they don't have any IP address or anything on it. But just imagine, I could take this network now and I could start putting OSPF on all of these links and design my own network. Well, look at all the routers we've got. I mean, we've got so many nodes running. It just, I don't know. I just think that's amazing. We've got that many nodes running and we're barely using 25%. It won't even go up to 25% of usage. And we've got, what is it here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 routers running on this, which is just phenomenal. So really cool. If you want to do something simpler though, if you just want to go in here and add yourself a lab and you want to play with the ASA, bring an ASA out, boot it up, play with it. This iOS VL2 is a layer 2 switch. That's the switch I most often use when I'm doing switching items. The iOS V is the router that I use because some of the Cisco 1000, this 1000V and these other ones use a lot more resources and they're not necessarily any better than the iOS V. Okay. Questions? Okay, let me get that finished. I'm going to see if anybody is still in a lab. Here's if Sohel's still in it. No, Sohel's. See, Sohel actually did what I talked about. He was playing with a lab. Yeah, and actually they do, Bob. They're the CCIE is on this is using Cisco Modeling Labs or something similar to it. So when they go do their hands-on, but this was a lab that Sohel was playing with. And when he ended his reservation, he didn't shut it down. He didn't turn it off. So those resources are sitting there still in use. So if you create a lab, make sure you turn it off by clicking the stop button. And then if you're totally done with it, so you know you're not going to use it again, once you turn it off, just wipe it and then delete it. Okay. So you can't delete it till you wipe it. So you're cleaning it off. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to wipe this one. Somebody was playing with this one and forgot to take it off. Wipe. Ooh, my internet connection's unstable. Let me turn off my video. There it goes. We're better now. All right, click OK. Now, don't forget though, you can download these YAML files, and the YAML files will allow you to do the labs, and they're pre-built, so you don't have to drag out your own stuff. So again, if I wanted to do that lab 6 inside of there, I download the YAML file, investigating static routes. I download this YAML file. Just download it locally, save it. And I go into CML, I import. I click here to import it. I find the 612 YAML, click open, import it, and then boom, the lab is sitting right there. And there's the lab built for you. If you want to start all the devices at once, go out here, click start, and there you have it. So there's the lab 612 pre-built for you inside of Cisco Modeling Labs. And you just put your own base configs on it and work through the lab. It's another tool for you to use. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. Feel free to use the real gear. Be aware we've only got 2 pods of this right now. We are working on another pod, but just be aware it's another tool available for you to use that you can play with. Any questions?
Kelly, can we use 2 monitors with CML?
You can, but the problem is you can't really pull out. You could put your document on one side and the lab on the other, but you really can't pull this out to another, like I can do this, I can undock this and make this, put this on one side over here and then, do it that way. But it's not as easy as some of the others because you're limited because the PC is inside of here. What actually works better is like a really big, really big monitor is the best thing for CML, because then you can move this up, you can shrink this down, and you can do that. So that's one of the limitations of CML, I will say. Especially the way we're doing it, because we're bringing it through a jump box, basically. Which is,
and when we are done with the lab, how do we download those configurations to upload?
Yeah, that's one of the things you won't be able to do. What you need to do is do like a show run and then do a snipping, just snip it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only negative. That's one of the negatives here is we can't really do that in terms of uploading them. Now you could do it. You could upload them into here because you have access to, our class. So you could just save them locally and try it, but the easiest thing is just take a snip and upload it as part of a Word document, and that'll be fine. I do want to go back over again. How do you end a lab? If you're done with a lab, you stop it. Okay, so click the stop button on it, and then that'll give you the wipe button. Click the wipe button, click OK, and then you can delete that lab, and that lab is now gone. Okay. Now, if we continue to use this tool, one of the things I'd like to do eventually is just to have all the YAML files already on the system itself. And that may be something I do for y'all. I'll just see I'll see what I can do about that. Maybe I can do another image of the client and all the YAML files will be local on the machine. Just put them maybe out here on the desktop or something, or in the downloads themselves. Somebody have a question? Okay.
So this is hosted on Ubuntu with a Windows-like GUI?
This is just a client. The actual CML is hosted on a full ESXi server. And that server is a big honking server. We've got on the CML server itself, that's the back end on this, 600 gigs of RAM and 76 processors dedicated to Cisco Modeling Labs. So it is a very, very powerful system sitting in the background of this. So when I go to system, I can do this. I can look at that. Licensing, that's the other thing. But you basically have inside of here it's pretty crazy the amount of here's all the different nodes that we've got, but the amount of hardware we've got dedicated on the back end of this thing. In terms of, it's only one server. That's the thing that's kind of nuts, though. It's still only just one server that's really running the entire CML and these clients. And then we've got NetLabs as a jump box front end to it, so we don't have to do any weird VPN stuff for you. So, but when you get done, just close this out and end your reservation. And you are done. Let's see. Okay, no problem, Augustine. And then you can dump out and you're done with competitions. All right. So that is CML. I tried to give you send you some videos last week. I will dump them in here too, underneath the Zoom links for class. I do want to show you a couple things here. I think I went over this last time, but I do want to go over it again real quickly. I want you to look at this very carefully again, because your book, how many of you ordered the book and have gotten it in so far? Any of you got the book in? Or are you using our O'Reilly resources? You're reading watching the O'Reilly videos and stuff? If you are, you will have noticed that inside of O'Reilly, the information doesn't go as deep as the book. And that is because when you look at your actual blueprint, it does not go as deep as the book, because the blueprint doesn't go that deep. So be aware of that as you're starting to study and looking at it, that you are not trying to make things more complicated than they need to be. Now, I want to, here in a second, let's talk process. Okay. Now, last week, you had a question about process switching versus fast switching versus Ceph. Process switching is, let's see, I got some questions about the book. Okay. Okay. CCNP. All right. Process switching is a routing method whereby every single time a packet has to be enacted upon, you must send that packet into the hold on one second, folks. Sorry, I was ordering supper, y'all. Oh wow, that's good. The book had a 7% off for the videos. That's really good. I didn't know that. Y'all did get the email sent though about the discount. If you bought one book, you get a discount if you buy two. That was a really good deal. I think Dave gave us that. But here's process switching. If a frame or packet comes in and it has to go all the way into the CPU, and there's a lookup in the table, and then the frame gets sent. So basically it comes in an ingress interface. This is the ingress side on the left, egress side on the route. If you're process switching, each one of those packets is being acted upon by the CPU, and a full route table lookup is going on. Now, that is a very bad way to do routing. In fact, it's a horrible way to do it. Okay. So the other way to do it is fast switching. And with fast switching, what happens is this. As packets come into an ingress port, the very first one that comes in, there will be a process switch lookup through the CPU. In other words, it goes and looks and says, if I'm going to this network, I need to go out this interface. So I need to know this egress interface. That information then is written into what is called a fast cache. Any other packets coming in for the same destination network, it does a fast cache lookup instead of having to do a full shunting it to the CPU, doing a full route table lookup. So it saves that first lookup in a fast cache so that subsequent packets going to the same destination don't have to do a full process switch lookup. Now, if a packet comes into a destination not in the fast cache, that first packet has to go and be process switched. So you got a process switched environment, terrible. Fast switching, a little bit better, because only the first packet in the flow has to be looked up. And then we've got the final one, which is Cisco Express Forwarding. And in Cisco Express Forwarding, here's what happens. Before any packets come in, once the routing table is made, once this routing table is created, the router goes in with Ceph and builds a forwarding information-based table using both the routing table and the ARP cache for all possible destinations in the routing table. So in other words, it does the lookups and builds a database of all possible networks the router knows how to get to. And then any incoming packet for a network, it doesn't have to be fast switched. It doesn't have to be process switched. It looks in the 40 information base and immediately makes a decision about what egress port it goes out. So in other words, the way this has been described in layman's terms is this. If you're doing process switching, the idea is you are going to do, every time a packet or every time you're doing a mathematical equation, you would do longhand, basically solving the problem, you would use longhand process. So you'd use the long formula every single time that you were doing the mathematical equation. That is process switching. Fast switching is you do longhand on the first time you do the problem. Then every other time you already know the answer. You just use the answer you've already found. You don't do the longhand again. Ceph is literally do all the possible longhand calculations you can beforehand, put them into a database, and then anything coming in, you just look in that database to find your answer. So Ceph makes it much, much, much faster. So those are our three ways when we're talking about how a router does. Now, when we say routers, remember, I'm also meaning layer 3 switches, because layer 3 switches are just routers that are switching, or excuse me, switches that are routing. So they still use Ceph. They use that same concept. Without Ceph, Cisco routers will be much, much slower, and they are definitely, this is a proprietary method. So be aware of that. It is a very proprietary method. Questions? All right. Folks, that's the two main things I wanted to go through today was CML and that discussion on Ceph and those items. Are there any questions on these first couple labs here? This VLAN routing, most of you've done this first one. I've graded it. Saw a couple little issues where people forgot to turn on IPv6 routing, unicast routing. You know, that's common, or you missed a route here or there. That happens. Don't forget that I did put in here for you inside the class, if you're using our NetLabs environment, the original full equipment, I've got your initial device configs for every single one of the devices. So do not, beat yourself to death trying to do those. They're all here and can be copy and pasted into NetLabs. If you have any problems about copy and pasting those, let me know and I'll show you how to do it. It's pretty simple. All right. Biggest problem we have with our NetLabs environment for CCNP is we only have 2 pods, unfortunately. Okay. Other than that, you've got labs coming up on MST and Spanning Tree. We'll talk about not next week, but on the 6th. I am not going to be here next week, next Monday. Like I said, I leave for Canada tomorrow. I just checked the high in Canmore on Wednesday is -3. That's the high. Okay. The high on Thursday is -2, or it's maybe -2 on Wednesday, -3 on Thursday. No, it's -3 for both days now. It'll be 11 tomorrow when we get there. It's going to be balmy. But they're calling for 15 to 25 centimeters of snow tomorrow. So I'm just hoping we can actually get from Calgary to Canmore. I think it's, who knows, we may or may not be able to tomorrow. We may end up staying in Calgary tomorrow. Especially you take a southern boy that doesn't drive in snow much and suddenly you dump him up there where there's 25 centimeters of snow. So it's going to be quite interesting. 3 to 5 inches. That's nothing. For them anyway. But like I said, if I don't end up stuck somewhere in Canada, I'll be back by the 6th. And we will have class on the 6th. I hope some of you are hoping to be with us on the 7th at our ASC ITC meeting in Forsyth. And then be with us during that week at the NCCIA. If you are, we will be there, and we are staying at the Hampton Inn Haynes Mall. So if you are there, just look us up and we'll all get together and hang out. But if you're not coming, we're going to try to do some streaming from the event if we can. but I cannot make any promises because I don't know what my bandwidth's going to be inside that room we're in. All right. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stop the recording.